Oh, that's it. I've had it with this dump. We got no food. We got no jobs. Our pets' heads are falling off. Okay, just calm down.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. You know, when we've been covering all the information regarding the movie theater industry basically being shut down for such a long time, you know, things not looking very good for AMC, and then some of the fallout of Universal Studios rolling out Trolls Video on Demand as its debut, and how that's going to kind of affect the industry. But now we've got some good news. It sounds like movie theaters are starting to open. You know, in Texas, EVO Entertainment was planning to open 2 theaters last week using airport-style security and check-ins. Texas Governor Greg Abbott allowed theaters to reopen on Friday, beginning at only 25% capacity. You know, in several other states, including Georgia, I believe, are loosening their restrictions as well. And then, you know, also with the opening, EVO Entertainment and Santikos, also in San Antonio, you know, they're charging discounted prices, you know, for their opening right now. So, Nalo, we've got some things happening. You know, at least movies are starting to open up, and theaters are starting to have, people again.
Yeah, Wes, thanks for having me back on. And we're finally starting to see some emergence, some people getting to step outside again, the economy's wheels starting to turn. But also that this is not just a back to normal. This is a kind of a new normal, and we're starting to see that kind of play out first in these movie theaters with the, like you said, airport-style security that's being put into place.
Yeah, certainly people aren't going to be extremely excited to have to go through temperature checks and other kinds of health checks before they can actually enter the movie theater. That's going to be a deterrent. Of course, the movie theaters themselves, when they open up, only at 25% capacity, and they're having to offer discounted prices. You know, it's going to be a while before money starts really coming in.
Yeah, I saw that at least in the Texan market, they reduced prices from what was usually around $7 to around $5. And in total, in San Antonio, at least, they had 3,000 moviegoers, which usually would not impress anybody, but at least kind of shows to some extent to the consumer market, there's this pent-up demand. You know, some people had their habits of going to the movies once a week or twice a month. They've been in lockdown for at least 9 weeks. So there is this pent-up demand, but those people are kind of the first that are experiencing, you know, these new procedures. These movie theater owners want to demonstrate to these moviegoers what precautions they're taking, how they're putting safety at top of mind. And they're really trying to draw the line of profit over just getting the consumer psyche more comfortable with how things are going to have to operate.
Yeah, these 3 theaters that were the first to open in San Antonio, the Santikos theaters, I've been to all 3 of them, I believe. You know, I lived in San Antonio for about 3 years. They're very nice theaters. It's actually not even a for-profit business. The Santikos theaters, all the profits go to charity. But, you know, they're basically the canary in the coal mine. You know, executives around the country in the movie industry have to be keeping an eye on that to see how, you know, willing people are come in there and see these movies, but also, you know, how the procedures are running, if things are smooth, you know, what are their concession sales like, stuff like that.
Yeah, and this might only be the tip of the iceberg of new procedures. They finally, after all this time, have decided to clean the New York City subway every night. Probably very long overdue. You know, are we going to see a whole new kind of cleaning procedures where in between movies they want to actually go and, you know, wipe things down, disinfect them? Is that going to be something that might, you know, the question really is, if they add more and more procedures, is it going to make people feel safer that, oh, they're taking all these steps, or is it going to kind of scare more people away the more and more they do? And I think it's the question of trying to find this balance of, you know, keeping things distant and safe for the time being, but also not doing it in a way that signals to people that maybe they should actually just stream a movie.
Well, and also, you know, how much cleaning time is going to be between showings. You know, the less showings you have on the screens, the less money they're able to bring in on any given day. So they're already, you know, the margins are already tight. They're having to charge less per ticket. They're having to allow less guests, and, you know, depending on these procedures, they could have less showings per day. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be getting, you know, easier anytime soon.
Operational hours will probably change. While people will have to be social distance, the movies schedules themselves will probably be more spaced out, and we'll kind of have to see where this equilibrium falls, where the pent-up demand is, but also to keep in mind that it's not the blockbusters that are even being released right now. So maybe we'll see in the next wave when the blockbusters start to come. You're going to right now just get these diehard moviegoers who need to get out of the house. They need a change of scenery. They need some escapism. We're going to then get the blockbusters, and maybe we'll see, crowds double or triple. And as the economy opens up more into the fall, hopefully, when we get the big kind of Oscar seasons, maybe we'll be at something like 75% of the previous capacity and hopefully on a road to recovery.
Like we mentioned before, there was 30,000 moviegoers went to the 3 Santikos theaters in San Antonio. And, we said, social distancing procedures. That means every other row is empty, as well as at least 6 feet between each guest per seat. So, like I said, 25% occupancy. Like you already mentioned, Trolls World Tour, Bloodshot, I Still Believe, The Hunt, Bad Boys for Life. Nothing new out right now. And really the big test is going to be July 17th. That's the first date where we have a certified blockbuster release, Christopher Nolan's Tenet. And that's really going to be the big stress test and maybe a measure of the market and what kind of appetite people are going to have to get back in theaters.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the litmus test of a film like a Christopher Nolan one, where it's actually shot with the cinema experience in mind, using different kinds of actual film and camera angles and really awesome sound. And when we look at companies that are nationwide right now, like AMC, they have over 8,000 screens. Regal has 7,000 screens. These are all pretty much still closed. And if they're able to open at least some of them by then, and we start getting these big name movies in, I think that we're going to see the movie theater really find its way in this new world.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because recent polls indicated only 22% of Americans said they'd be willing to set foot in a theater in a state if it reopens early. And although half of them that were polled said that they would return to theaters once their state met the White House guidelines for the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 reopening. So, there's definitely a psychological impact that customers are going to have to overcome, or theaters are going to have to help them overcome to get back in there.
Something I'm excited about that one of the EVO theaters is doing is also kind to harken back to showing more classic movies or ones with cult followings, also just to, maybe give people more something to do. So I think they're starting with The Goonies, which I know is one of your favorite, Wes. And so that is something that you usually only saw in kind of indie or art theaters, but it'd be cool if you could just, catch a replay of The Dark Knight in IMAX. Maybe that would get me to go as opposed to waiting for these new blockbusters as well.
Yeah, I think Santikos was actually replaying Selena. There's a large, obviously, Latino population there. So they're playing kind of a classic movie for the audience there, and hopefully that will bring people in as well. But it wasn't all bad news for movie theaters. Obviously they're opening. I'm sure that they wanted bigger crowds, but at least, we did finally hear from Disney of, one of the biggest producers of blockbuster movies as far as family entertainment, comic book movies, Star Wars and all that stuff. And their CEO, Bob Chapek, said that they're still very much believe in the theatrical experience, and they still plan for all their blockbusters to start up in cinemas first. They're not currently planning on doing the video on demand co-release at the same time as theaters, which has got to be good news.
That's got to be good news, signaling to the markets that they very much believe in the cinema experience and that their blockbuster movies will definitely be launching there. But I think it also is the way that they can save face because, they're saying, don't worry, the blockbusters will be coming to the movies. But at the same time, they're saying just in the next sentence that because of changing and evolving consumer dynamics and because of these kinds of situations, that they will be making some changes on a case-by-case basis. And we just seen that happen with Marvel, which is owned by Disney most recently, where they announced very bottom of the barrel comics will actually be finishing out their runs in digital only and then be collected in print. And so this might be a kind of strategy where movies that won't get this kind of big draw or not really don't deserve the marketing budget in these tight times. They will just kind of quietly be putting them on Disney Plus and basically seeing how that plays out. And it seems like, they're trying to calm the theaters down, but at the same time, Disney seems to be ready to, make some strategic changes.
Yeah, obviously Artemis Fowl is the first big test for Disney Plus as far as a movie bypassing theaters, going directly on video on demand for the Disney Plus streaming. Mulan is the other movie that we kind of have to keep an eye on. It kind of looked like it was probably going to bomb a little bit, probably wasn't going to make a ton of its budget back. And I think they were having a hard time finding a good spot for that, although I believe that it's still scheduled for a July release. But I think if we see some things pushed back and theaters aren't opening by then, they might just bypass and put Mulan on Disney Plus as well, if it goes well with Artemis Fowl.
Yeah, that's definitely something to watch. And also outside of kind of the United States, we've been focusing on, I think Mulan is a kind of movie Disney would hope to bring a big international audience, and especially in Asia. And so that might also be contingent on how open that area of the global market is as well. So I think Mulan's probably the first in the Disney's pipeline to really see how this is going to impact theaters.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting time for Disney, obviously. We're going to cover in depth tomorrow some of the financial issues that they're having. You know, their Q2 financial reports just came out, and it's pretty ugly. You know, but they had a lot of movies that were in production. I believe Shang-Chi, Ridley Scott's The Last Duel, the live-action Little Mermaid movie, you know, as well as some, you know, smaller films like Nightmare Alley, Shrunk, and Peter Pan and Wendy. You know, those movies are all on hold, and they're still going to have to finance those coming out of this. So, you know, Disney is very much kind of hedging their bets. They are saying they're still behind the theatrical experience, and I'm certain that we're going to see all of those blockbuster movies hit the theater first, so they can have those big runs. You know, an MCU movie, even a bad one, you know, you kind of expect it to make $700 million just on its run nowadays. But we'll see how some of these smaller movies, and like I said, they're hedging their bets, and they are definitely leaving themselves open to maybe adjust their digital strategy to go along with their theatrical strategy coming out of this, because everything's so uncertain.
So we're seeing some good news finally for theaters. Texas kind of seems to be taking the first step to open up, at least in the US, and everyone's looking to see how that goes. At least we saw there is some pent-up demand, and we're going to have more states to analyze probably in the coming weeks.
Of course, the worst thing in all this is the movie theater industry was actually in really bad shape, or, you know, pretty bad shape coming into all this. Movie theater business outlook was actually pretty bleak. Movie attendance has been falling for 2 decades now, and yes, we are seeing, you know, record revenues, you know, every single year, but that's because ticket prices are going up every single year, but the actual amount of paid tickets has been decreasing over time. I believe they said the domestic box office is already $1 billion behind last year at this point in time, and we still haven't even really started opening theaters. I saw one analyst said that he thinks that the box office is going to end up total down 42% this year.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, and I like to draw these analogies. So similarly with comics, you know, readership was going down, but the cover price was going up and up, especially for these kind of variants. So, you know, these companies were able to, on paper, show like, look, we got either, you know, steady revenue or it's growing a bit, but it kind of hides the fact that the number of people participating was going down. And so we can only really be hopeful that this situation allows for some sort of reset with kinds of pricing, maybe, like we said, showing more classic movies, and really kind of maybe finding a new equilibrium that everyone can be happy with.
Yeah, much like the comic industry, which we certainly cover more on the channel here, it's an evolving industry. It probably needed some evolution. It certainly was going from a service industry to more of a experience industry. I fully expect that to keep moving forward. And the only thing that we do know is that in a few months, we'll finally know something, because everything's just so up in the air right now. Nalo, thank you so much for joining me today talking about this. And like I mentioned before, first thing on the channel tomorrow, we will be talking about the financial situation for Disney and Universal as their financial reports came out, and they're taking a haircut, you know, especially on parks and movies right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the next discussion.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.